Former FTC Commissioner Slaughter fights back against illegal firing by Trump, a crucial test of presidential power. Washington, D.C., July 2025. Former Federal Trade Commission (FTC) Commissioner Rebecca Kelly Slaughter has launched a landmark legal battle against former President Donald Trump after being abruptly fired from her Senate-confirmed position earlier this year. The case, Slaughter vs. Trump, now stands as a defining moment for the independence of federal agencies and the limits of presidential authority. Trump's firing of FTC commissioners sparks legal firestorm. In a move that stunned Washington's legal and political circles, former President Donald Trump fired Slaughter and fellow Democratic Commissioner Alvaro Bedoya on March 18, 2025, without citing any cause. The pair had been serving terms legally protected under the FTC Act, which states that commissioners can only be removed for specific reasons such as inefficiency, neglect of duty, or malfeasance in office. The Trump administration justified its action by citing a broader interpretation of presidential power, relying heavily on recent Supreme Court decisions that expanded executive authority over certain agency heads, most notably, the 2020 SALA law ruling concerning the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. But critics argue that the FTC is fundamentally different. As a multi-member, bipartisan agency, the FTC has long been shielded from such executive interference under the 1935 Supreme Court precedent Humphreys Executor vs. United States, which upheld statutory protections for commissioners. Judge rules firing unlawful, orders reinstatement. The legal dispute quickly moved into federal court. In a decision issued on July 17, 2025, U.S. District Judge Lauren Ali Khan ruled that Slaughter's firing was unlawful and ordered her reinstatement. The judge's ruling declared that Slaughter remained a rightful member of the FTC and that only a lawful cause, supported by evidence, could justify her removal. The president's action directly violates the FTC Act and binding precedent, Judge Ali Khan wrote in her decision. Ms. Slaughter is entitled to resume her full responsibilities and duties as commissioner. The ruling also instructed the current FTC chair, Andrew Ferguson, to restore Slaughter's access to all commission offices, documentation, and digital platforms, effectively allowing her to resume her position. Slaughter celebrated the ruling as a victory for the rule of law and institutional integrity. "This is not just about me. This is about protecting the independent voice of our federal agencies and preserving public trust," she said in a public statement following the court's decision. Trump administration appeals ruling. In response to the district court's ruling, the Trump administration quickly filed an emergency appeal. On July 21, 2025, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit granted a temporary stay, delaying Slaughter's reinstatement pending further review. The appellate court ordered an expedited schedule, requesting written arguments from both sides by July 29, 2025. Legal experts suggest that the appellate decision could arrive shortly thereafter and is likely to be further appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court, where a conservative majority could potentially reshape long-standing doctrines governing agency independence. Slaughter's advocacy and broader stakes. Beyond her legal filings, Slaughter has emerged as a vocal critic of executive overreach. In multiple interviews and social media posts, she has emphasized the broader stakes of her case: defending agency integrity, maintaining bipartisan governance, and preventing the politicization of enforcement institutions. "This case is about more than my job," Slaughter said. "It's about ensuring that consumer protections, antitrust enforcement, and regulatory decisions are made based on law and evidence, not partisan politics." Fellow ousted Commissioner Alvaro Bedoya, though initially part of the legal challenge, later resigned and is no longer pursuing reinstatement. However, he has joined Slaughter on a public campaign trail, warning of the growing erosion of institutional checks and balances. In a rally held in Denver, Bedoya framed the fight as rule of law versus the rule of billionaires. He added, "We are here to defend the people's watchdogs. If agencies can be hijacked by political winds, then nobody is safe." A pattern of politicized removals. Slaughter's firing was not an isolated incident. In recent months, President Trump has taken similar action against members of the Consumer Product Safety Commission, CPSC, the National Labor Relations Board, NLRB, and other independent bodies. In many of these cases, legal challenges are underway, and the Supreme Court has allowed some of the firings to proceed. Critics argue that Trump is deliberately attempting to undermine the independence of regulatory agencies that have historically operated with bipartisan safeguards. Supporters of the administration, however, maintain that these agencies wield executive authority and should therefore be accountable to the president. Legal scholars note that if the courts ultimately side with Trump, it could trigger a seismic shift in how government operates, potentially allowing presidents to fire any agency leader at will, regardless of statutory protections. This case could be the beginning of the end for the independent agency model, warned constitutional law professor